All right, so am I correct? We did the Tea Act and the Boston Tea Party with you guys, right? Did we do it or did we not do it? Shivani, what's the last thing you have?
The Boston Massacre trial.
Okay. All right, the Boston Massacre trial. All right, did we do this or we led up to it? I think we did it, right?
We did it. We did it.
We did it. Okay. All right. Let's go. So the trials in 1770, and by 1773, England is going to pass something called the Tea Act. They passed it in May of 1773. Now, the Tea Act is not intended to be an anti-American act, really. It's intended to be an economic act to help prop up India. Okay, so at this point, the British have taken over India and they are basically turning India into a giant tea farm, essentially, right? And the British East India Trading Company has produced way, way, way too much tea. And they can't sell it all, so they're losing money. And so England passes the Tea Act requiring the United States to buy all of its tea from the British East India Trading Company. Okay, the act is meant to prop up the East India Trading Company. Now, attached to this, they also crack down on smuggling again. Okay, before this act, the United States, so tea was the most commonly drunk thing in the United States, the most commonly drunk beverage, and about 90% of the tea coming into the United States was smuggled. So the British were not collecting taxes on any of it. So now the British are going to arrest all the smuggling ships, stop the smuggling ships, and then make the colonists buy British tea. The colonists are really upset about this. Colonists up and down the America start to protest this, but really the protest really takes off in Boston again. Tension is still high in Boston. People are still upset. They remember the Boston Massacre. They remember the death and stuff. So the Sons of Liberty starts to organize a protest again, organize more and more protests. People are writing out against this. John Adams is writing out against this. There's a lot of people who are writing against this. John Hancock, Paul Revere, they're all writing against this stuff now. By the time we get to December of this year, December of 1773, we're going to have the Boston Tea Party. Boston Tea Party. So the Boston Tea Party is a protest by the Sons of Liberty, where Bostonians dressed up like Native Americans, broke into a British ship, and threw all the tea over the harbor, into the harbor. They got their tomahawks out, they put on feathers, they painted their faces, and then they get onto the ship and they throw all the tea overboard as a protest. All right, so why do you think they dressed like Indians? Eric, what do you think about that?
Maybe so they could like avoid faults.
Okay. You think anyone was actually like convinced by these costumes?
No.
Unlikely, right?
Yeah.
So maybe there's another reason. What do we think? So Eric, the reason why they're given is they say we're trying to hide our identity, right? But
right.
As it comes up later on, we start to look at this as maybe there's other reasons as well. Okay, what else? Give me another reason, Anika.
I'm honestly not like 100% sure, but I think that the stereotype for the Native Americans at that point was like savage still, so maybe they're like kind of representing that a little,
Like they're saying, I'm a savage like the natives are.
I guess, but probably no, I don't know.
Okay. All right. What else, Shivani?
Honestly, I was thinking what Anika was, but I didn't think it was right. But
Okay.
maybe it could be that they just wanted a disguise, like Eric was saying.
Okay. So at least one reason is that they wanted a disguise. That's at least one reason, and that is a stated reason why. Another reason is they're drunk. They're pretty significantly drunk. The Sons of Liberty actually spend quite a bit of the revolution drunk. A significant portion of their time is spent drinking. And they had all gotten drunk before this. They were all like in the brew house, drinking and drinking and drinking, and they're like, you know what would be a good idea? Let's go do this. And then they go out. Okay, so another reason is they're drunk. The other reason, it's kind of like Anika, where they're using the Indian, kind of like what Anika was saying, is that they're using the Indian dress as a symbol, but most of the ways that we think about this is they're not using it as a symbol the way Anika was saying. They're not saying I'm a savage like the natives. They're saying I'm an American. I'm different than the British, right? They're using this to say Native American stuff makes me look American. We are different, right? This is a really early example of the culture starting to change, right? Bostonians are now starting to call themselves Americans. They're not, Bostonians aren't exactly calling themselves British anymore, at least not all of them, right? And the Sons of Liberty are really pushing this idea that we are something different, right? Now, we need to be careful here. I don't want to ascribe too much meaning to a bunch of drunken guys who are out here vandalizing things, you know what I mean? But this comes up. This gets written about in the future. This gets written about in like articles and stuff about this, okay? So on the night of the protest, they destroyed about $1 million worth of tea. About $1 million, quite a bit of tea. Most of the colonies now, we have to make sure we understand this. The colonies are still quite loyal to the United States, okay? Most people in the United States still consider themselves British. Most people in the United States still just look at England as like the parent, right? But they're still part of England. Until this happens. In direct response to the Boston Tea Party, starting in March of 1774, the British Parliament is going to pass what they call the Coercive Acts. The Americans are going to rebrand it as the Intolerable Acts. In the grand American tradition of advertising, we rebrand it.
Which letter was the T Act and which one is this one?
Yeah, I don't know. What is it? You tell me. Shivani, what numbers are you on?
T Act was K, so
Okay.
this one would be
Jay?
K L. This one's L.
Oh, did you do Boston Tea Party as Jay?
Yeah, no. Yeah, wait, no. Boston
Okay.
Massacre was
Okay.
J.
Shivani says L. Eric, is that what you think?
Yeah.
Okay, done. All right, so coercive acts or the intolerable acts is number L. The British call them the coercive acts, the Americans call them the intolerable acts. Again, same act, same set of acts. Now, I'm going to give you all 5 of these acts. For the test, you are not really expected to be able to list all 5 and tell me what all 5 are, but you are expected to be able to say the intolerable acts did blah, 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 and blah, right? So you are expected to be able to tell me what the effect is, okay? So let's give you these 5. First one, the Boston Port Act. The Boston Port Act. All right, so the Boston Port Act, it takes the British Navy takes control of Boston Harbor, of the port of Boston, until Massachusetts pays back all of the money for the lost tea. So Massachusetts needs to pay back about $1 million. In today's money, about $1 million. Okay, so they close down the port, they take it over. The next thing they pass is something called the Massachusetts Government Act. Massachusetts Government Act puts Massachusetts under direct control of the Crown. Okay, this means that the Massachusetts people are no longer electing their own leadership. The assembly is gone. All right, Administration of Justice Act is very similar. This is where the British take over the courts. This also increases the number of soldiers in Massachusetts. Okay, the Quartering Act, this one's going to be the most controversial. The people of Boston are required to let a soldier live in their house. You're required to quarter the soldier in your house. Okay. Now, these all seem to make sense, right? What do all of these have in common? What do they have in common? So on your notes, you'll put a bracket on the side of them and put something that they all have in common. What do they all have direct in common with? Yeah, Balakrishnan?
They all put more control over the city of Boston itself and add more British control in there as well with like the soldiers and
Yeah. All of these are directly targeting Boston. They're directly targeting Massachusetts, either Massachusetts or Boston or both. They're directly targeting Massachusetts and Boston. Okay. The last act is called the Quebec Act. This makes Catholicism legal in Quebec. Now, the British, the Americans, yeah, Eric, I see your facial expression. What's your problem with the Quebec Act, man?
Nothing at all. So the Canadians get religious freedom, but the Americans don't because the Americans are starting problems.
So the Americans already have religious freedom because they had already passed their own laws,
Right.
right? But Quebec had become owned by England after the French and Indian War, right? So the French had founded Quebec, filled it up with Catholics. The British take over Quebec where Catholics were illegal, and now they legalized the Catholics, okay? The Bostonians actually view this as an attack on Boston as well, right? Because Massachusetts says we don't like Catholics, and we don't like Catholics, and we don't want Catholics, right? And this is the British Crown saying Quebec is something different than America, and that it's going to be treated differently, right? So it's considered an intolerable act, even though it's kind of a weird one, right? This is like a cultural thing where they're upset about the different treatment of the Canadian provinces and the American colonies. Yeah, it's kind of a weird one. It's kind of a strange one. All right, here is a political cartoon criticizing the Intolerable Acts. Let's take a moment, examine what we see here. Okay, all right, so let's chime in here, okay? All right, let's start off with Shivani. What do you see in the picture here?
They're holding down someone and forcing something down their mouth,
Okay.
and someone's looking away. So I guess they're like you, and then
Okay, so this is a political cartoon of the time. Okay, Shivani, you're okay, but I'm trying to focus us slightly. Okay, so the political cartoon of the time. So political cartoons are always going to use imagery to signify something else, right? You use like an eagle to signify the United States. You use a bear to signify Russia. You use, you know, whatever to signify something else. Okay, so the centerpiece here could be this woman. What is this woman signifying? Anybody, not just Shivani.
Like America.
United States.
United
Okay,
States.
or America. United States doesn't exist yet, but America. All right, so Shivani or Anika says this is America. All right, what stands out about this woman?
She's like being held down, and she's also away from the ships. Where it's in the back, it says something. Does it say cannon? What does it say?
Yeah, so this says Boston cannonaded.
Okay.
Cannon, like cannon, right?
Oh, I see.
Cannonaded. This is Boston with ships shooting cannons at Boston. Is
Yeah.
what it's saying, essentially, right?
I don't know if she is. Is she on like in Boston too right now?
Yeah, so these are the ships in the harbor, and she's on Boston soil.
Okay. Well, she's surrounded by a lot of men and one woman who's like covering her eyes,
Okay,
and
Let's-
all the men are holding her down.
let's deal with this woman first, right? Why is she naked? What can you tell me about her? Eric?
Well, yeah, she's naked, and that might be symbolism for like America being a new country without like
So America's not a country yet. America's not a country yet.
Right. Yeah. Just
She looks like a Native American, right?
yes.
I get the impression that she's a Native American, right? I think the nakedness is supposed to make me think of her as being a Native as well, right? So she's a Native American. Again, we're using Native American imagery to signify America, right? What else? What's being poured down her throat?
Tea.
This is the tea act, right? So they're pouring the tea down her throat while they're holding her down. We got the port bill in his pocket, right? What's this guy doing?
Looking up her.
Yeah, he's getting ready to rape her, right? He's getting ready to rape her. He's violating her, okay? So this is, you can understand this to either be America or you can understand this to be Massachusetts, right? And I think you can go either way. I think probably Massachusetts, probably understand her to be Massachusetts. Let's talk about this other lady up here. Shivani, what are we thinking about this lady?
she's disgusted. She's just looking away. So I can't tell if that's supposed to be a colonist or someone from England.
Yeah, so she's got the
Yeah.
spear. The key here is the spear, right? She's got the spear, and then this is her helmet that she's taken off,
Oh.
right? It's like Athena.
Mhm.
It's like the view of Athena from Greek mythology. Okay, so this would be Lady Liberty. This would be Lady Liberty. At this point, this is the personification of freedom or the personification of liberty. Liberty is always portrayed as a woman, right? It's not a mistake that when they make the Statue of Liberty, it's a woman, right? That's on purpose, right? That liberty is always conceived as a woman. And so, because liberty is a pure virtue, just like women are pure, right? Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, Boston's being violated. Boston's being violated by the British, right? We also have this guy over here with his military law, right, on his sword over here. All right, so this is the exact kind of cartoon that the AP exam is going to use. They use these kinds of cartoons often. In fact, they used this exact cartoon about 7 years ago. Okay, so you need to, they'll give you a caption. They'll say, cartoon published after the Tea Act, 1773, right? You'll have to know, oh, I know what the Tea Act is going to do. I know why people are upset, right? And so you'll have to take what you know and interpret it here. Cool? Okay. All right. We're going to finish this off here. The shot word heard round the world, M. Big number M. Okay, and put shot heard around the world in quotations. All right, so we have, I'm gonna put, I gave the students the paper today. I forgot to put the link on my homepage, but I'll put a link to Patrick Henry's speech. It's the Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death speech, Patrick Henry. I want you to read it before next class period so we can have our discussion on it. It's pretty short. I'll put the link on the front page. I just forgot to do it today. All right. The Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death speech. Okay. So in Boston, 1775, tensions are very, very high. The Intolerable Acts, oh, I forgot one thing about the Intolerable Acts. The Intolerable Acts are going to become one of the first unifying things for the colony. Because the colonies are all going to look at this and they're going to say, England is being cruel. England is targeting Massachusetts. And so the word starts trickling through. If England is going to target Massachusetts, then what if they decide to target New York? What if they decide to target Virginia? What if they decide to target Maryland or Pennsylvania, right? But the word starts getting out, we better stick up for Massachusetts. We better stay with Massachusetts or England's going to get us all, right? If we sit by and let them beat Massachusetts down, then who's going to stop them from beating Virginia down next? Okay, at this point, our state identity, your colonial identity, is much, 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 much stronger than your identity as an American, right? All the way through the Revolution, you're going to get these guys who identify themselves as a Virginian, not an American, or as a Massachusettsian, not an American, right? They're going to call themselves a New Yorker, not an American. We still kind of have this today, right? The way Americans talk about this, you know, we'll say, oh, where are you from? I'm from Utah. Or, you know, you'll get this a lot with like Texans and Californians. They're really, really proud of Texas and California, right? Utahns are also in a state, right? And sometimes kind of proud, right? Let's get back to here. So the Brits are occupying Boston. Bostonians are, they feel like they're trapped in their own houses. They feel like they have a curfew at night. The British soldiers are marching the streets of Boston, trying to keep calm. And so the Bostonians are are on high defense. The British decide to attack. They decide that it's the time to attack. The British think that the Americans are going to attack. The Americans think the British are going to attack. The British make a plan. They're going to attack both Lexington and Concord, and they're going to do them both at the same time. Lexington and Concord are two areas next to Britain, or next to Boston. Two areas next to Boston. So the British are planning on attacking Lexington because if they go to Lexington, they're going to arrest Samuel Adams and John Hancock, the two leaders, right? Hancock and Adams, Sam Adams, are in Lexington, and the British are planning on attacking both of them, arresting them. They haven't been able to arrest them yet because you know that if you arrest Sam Adams, then it's game over, right? What's Boston going to do if you arrest Sam Adams? How do you think Boston's going to react?
Probably riot or something.
Probably, right? I mean, they raided your ship and threw $1 million worth of tea in the harbor just because you made them pay a tax, right? If you take the leader of the Sons of Liberty and put them in jail, Boston's going to light itself on fire, right? And so the Brits know that. Okay, so that's what they're going to do in Lexington. In Concord, the British are going to take over the storehouses of gunpowder. That's where all the gunpowder is stored. Now, the British, there's a spy in the British Army, an American spy. And the American spy gets the word out. And he says, hey, the soldiers are moving. And so Paul Revere, William Dawes, and Samuel Prescott, they all hop on their horses. they all hop on their horses and they do the midnight ride, right? Where they ride through the streets. The British are coming, the British are coming, the British are coming. They don't actually say that. That's a myth. They don't actually say that because most Massachusetts people believe themselves to be British. So that wouldn't make any sense. What they do instead is they light the lanterns. One if by land and two if by sea, right? If the British are attacking you by the sea, you light 2 lanterns. If the British are attacking by land, you light 1, right? So Paul Revere, Dawes, and Prescott all light 1 lantern at the center of all the town. And the Bostonians are sitting there in their houses watching this, and they're like, oh, damn, them lanterns are lit. Let's do this, right? That's not an exact quote. So the Bostonians do this, and the Bostonians jump to action. One of the vocab words you need here is called Minutemen. Minutemen. These are Bostonians or patriots, Americans, who were ready to fight in 1 minute. So they kept all their weapons ready, their gun loaded, everything ready. So as soon as they hear the bell, as soon as they see the lantern, they can get dressed and they can be ready for the fight in 1 minute. Okay? And the Americans move very, very quickly. Okay? Very, very quickly. And so when the British arrive in Lexington, thinking that it's going to be in the middle of the night, it's going to be a surprise attack and no one's going to be there, they're met with 60 Minutemen all ready to fight. The British open fire, they open fire, and we hear the shot heard round the world. Paul Revere is going to write that into the newspaper the next day. It's the shot heard round the world, a shot so loud that the entire world turns its head towards liberty to see what had happened that night in Boston. We are officially in the Revolutionary War. Okay? All right, we're going to leave it here. Well, how much time do we got? Yeah, let's read this real quick. Okay, Anika, go ahead and read it. This is a quote from Paul Revere.
We set off for Concord and were overtaken by a young gentleman named Prescott who belonged to Concord and was going home. When we had got about halfway from Lexington to Concord, the other 2 stopped at a house to awake the men. I kept along. In an instant, I saw 4 of them who rode up to me with their pistols in their bands, said, "Good, did you? Oh,
God damn you.
Oh. God damn you. Stop. If you go an inch further, you are a dead man." Immediately, Mr. Prescott came up. We attempted to get through them, but they kept before us and swore if we did not return to that pasture, they would blow our brains out. They had placed themselves in opposite to a pair of bars and had taken the bars down. They forced us in. When we had got in, Mr. Prescott said, "Put on." He took to the left, I to the right. Just as I reached it, out started 6 officers, seized my bridle, put their pistols to my breast, ordered me to dismount, which I did.
Yeah.
Account of midnight ride to Lexington.
There you go. So Paul Revere writes about this. He writes about this and he gets stopped, but then they release him later on. The British soldiers aren't 100% sure they know who he is, which, turns out to be a mistake on their part. But they let him go. We have this, we're off to the revolution now. Okay? All right, do we have questions or comments or problems? Going once, going twice. Okay. I'm going to put the link for the Patrick Henry speech. I'll put the link on the canvas on the homepage. I want you to read it. And then we will discuss it. We'll discuss it next time. And next time you will have a quiz. I forgot to make the quiz this morning. I was thinking about it and then something else came up. So you will have a quiz next time you see me. Okay? Awesome possum. Do your amendments and make sure you are being critical of these amendments. Don't just vote for them. If you vote for them without thinking about it, then your people are going to elect you out of office in November because they're going to say you suck. Well, you're not even reading your amendments, right? Your job is on the line here.
So for the argumentation portion,
Mhm.
do we just respond to other people's
Yeah.
amendments arguing or other people's responses to the
Yeah.
amendment?
I'm looking for your quality of argument. I'm looking for you making a really good argument in favor of an amendment or really a good argument against the amendments. That's what I'm looking for.
So the argument could be included in the I vote yes because, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah,
Or,
it could be. Yeah, it can be. What I'm looking for is that you are driving a dialogue, that you're driving a conversation. That's
okay.
what I'm looking for.
So it
If,
would also
if,
count to respond to like someone else's. If someone said, I vote yes on this and you disagree, you can respond to their voting.
yeah, of course. Yeah,
and then-
of course.
Okay.
Cool. All right. I'll see you later, guys. Have a good day.